We see that somewhere high in the mountains, a small village was living in fear, getting torn apart again and again by a monstrous Fenrir, ranked S-class. Eventually, with nothing left to lose, the villagers poured all their savings into hiring a legendary SS rank adventurer team to end the nightmare. The members of Flaming Dragon Fang are among the most feared adventurers alive, each with their own brutal specialty. But then there's Kurt, and the only damn thing he's ever been useful for is chores, so he hides behind a wall, just trying to stay out of harm's way. But the first unlucky one the Fenrir charges at when it appears is Kurt, so he gets blasted through the air like trash, and the rest of the team steps in to handle the real fight. Zounoze then shouts at Bandana to pin the creature down, so she flicks out her wire and wraps it around the beast. But within seconds, the Fenrir smashes her into a wall so hard it sounds like something broke. Normally, that'd be the end of her story, but with Marlefus nearby, she's back on her feet in no time and jumps back into the mess without even blinking. This time, she anchors herself to a tree to keep from being thrown again, giving Zounoze the chance he needs to strike at the Fenrir's skull. So he launches into the air and engulfs the monster's head in flames with his sword. The villagers are beyond grateful for the Fenrir's defeat, so they scrape together what little they got left to throw a feast for the party, even though they're barely surviving. But even with that, Zounoze the jerk can't stand this boring peasant food. He tells Kurt to make something halfway decent instead, and Bandana asks him to make it special, since today's the last time they'll be tasting anything he cooks. Kurt has no clue what the hell they're talking about, so he turns to Zounoze for answers, and the jerk tells him flat out that he's being kicked from the team starting today. Kurt protested, asking if he'd done something wrong, but Zounoze tells him the truth. Kurt's just not enough. Sure, he handles chores, makes food, and cleans up, but when it comes to battle, he's dead weight. And also, they're only allowed 4 members in the squad, so if they want to make room for someone who can actually fight, preferably a powerful mage or at least a competent warrior, he's gotta go. Kurt begs them to let him stay. His voice cracks, and he's clearly trying not to cry. But Zounoze's had it, so he kicks Kurt in the stomach to shut him the hell up. He's tired of hearing him weeping, and they don't need him anymore because they've made their choice, so that's the brutal end of it. The day after getting kicked out, Kurt walks away from the village with nothing but the clothes on his back, no idea where he's going, and a wallet emptier than his future. He just keeps moving, dragging his feet, until he ends up in the city of Samela. He's got a few coins left, so if he doesn't find work soon, he's completely screwed. Eventually, he spots a temp agency that doesn't look too shady and decides to give it a shot. As he walks in, a receptionist named Kershel gives him a quick look and asks whether he's here to hire someone or to find work. Kurt tells her he's looking for a job, and she nods, tells him they'll need to do an interview and a standard aptitude test to get started. She starts with the usual questions, his name, age, and where the hell he's from. Kurt replies, "My name is Kurt Rockins, I'm 15 years old, and I come from a small village nestled in the Sheen Mountains called Hast." Kershel is taken aback as she had never heard of such a remote village, but she quickly moves on to his work experience. Kurt explains that he was once a member of Flaming Dragon Fang, though his duties were limited to basic chores, and that he was recently fired. Kershel's eyes widen at the mention of his affiliation with an SS rank party. Even if he only handled menial tasks, having that prestigious name on his resume might just open some doors. Relieved by this unexpected silver lining, Kurt is eager to complete the aptitude tests so that Kershel can assess his strengths and weaknesses. In this world, aptitudes are considered gifts bestowed by the divine, and if luck is on his side, he might discover a hidden talent today. Aptitudes range from a humble G rank to a dazzling triple S rank, with differences so vast that a G rank sword user can barely lift the damn blade without falling over, while an A rank warrior could cleave a rock in 2 without breaking a sweat. Kurt's heart races with excitement as he awaits his test results, but his hopes are dashed when every single combat-related aptitude is graded a G rank. The realization sinks in, he has no chance of ever excelling in a combat role. Devastated, Kurt feels his spirit crumble, but Kershel reassures him that there might still be a bright side. She explains that he could still possess a valuable trade skill, such as alchemy or blacksmithing. Unfortunately, the technician responsible for those particular aptitude tests is currently on vacation, meaning Kurt will have to wait another damn week to find out if he's good at anything at all. Kurt tells her straight up that he can't wait a whole damn week because he's literally 1 loaf of bread away from starving in the street, and if he doesn't find work today, he's done for. Kershel gets it, so she nods and points toward a stack of sandbags nearby, asking him to try lifting one. He walks over and grabs one of the bags, and the second his hands touch it, something weird happens. There's this strange pull if the sand inside sucked out a bit of his mana. Still, he lifts it without much effort, and that's good enough for Kershel. If he can manage that, then she figures he's got what it takes to do some basic construction work. She tells him about a frontier town out in the Margraviate of Takum that's currently hiring people to help rebuild the city walls, and she will write him a letter of recommendation, so he should be able to get a foot in the door. Kurt thanks her genuinely and heads out immediately to meet with the Margrave. When Kurt shows up, the Margrave gives him a once-over after reading the letter. The guy clearly doesn't think much of him. In his head, Kurt probably looks more like someone who'd break under pressure than build a wall. But the man's desperate because he needs all the help he can get, so he shrugs and decides to give the kid a shot. He then instructs Kurt to mix cement and use it to mend the wall, promising that his pay will reflect the volume of work completed. The Margrave says he'll come back later to check on things, and before leaving, he adds one last warning. If Kurt hasn't used at least half a barrel of cement by the time he returns, the pay's gonna be garbage. Kurt wants to ask something because no one said anything about needing to pour mana into the cement to make it stick, but he keeps his mouth shut. Maybe it's common knowledge and he just sounds stupid. Besides, he finds it weird that the quota is only half a barrel. That feels way too easy, so he makes up his mind. He's going to use as much damn cement as possible before the guy gets back. By the time the Margrave returns, he looks like he's seen a ghost. Not only has Kurt hit the quota, he's gone way beyond it, he's already finished an entire section of the wall. Kurt even apologizes, saying he could have done more, but he ran out of cement midway. The Margrave just stares at him, struggling to believe what he's seeing, so he squints at the top of the wall and asks how the hell Kurt managed to fix that part too. And with a happy face, Kurt says that he just chucked the cement up there and used a stick to spread it around. Normally, someone like the Margrave would call Kurt a damn liar because finishing that much work in that short time sounds flat out impossible. But the wall speaks for itself, and clearly, Kurt made it work. So the man swallows his doubt and admits the truth for what it is. He asks Kurt how long he's planning to stick around, and Kurt replies that he only needs the job for a week. That surprisingly puts the Margrave in a good mood, but then he tells Kurt that he's already done more than enough for the day and can head out for now. There's just one problem: he doesn't have enough money on him to pay Kurt properly. So instead he hands over a small pouch of coins and says he'll send the rest through the agency later. Kurt's eyes go wide because even that small pouch holds more than he ever earned back when he was busting his ass for the so-called hero party. Over the next few days, Kurt keeps showing up, working hard, fixing section after section of the wall. But suddenly, the Margrave informs him that his services are no longer needed. When Kurt asks why, the Margrave explains that the wall repair project was intended to provide employment for those in poverty. But Kurt's just too damn efficient means that if he keeps working, there won't be any jobs left for anyone else. The man's not mad. Hell, he even praises Kurt, saying his skill level looks like it's at least double S rank, maybe even triple. Honestly, he says that a guy like Kurt would be better off working in the royal capital, not patching walls out here. And with that, he gives Kurt a generous payout as compensation for ending the job so suddenly, then walks away without another word. But Kurt, being Kurt, completely misreads the situation. He thinks the Margrave fired him because he sucked, and that thought hits him harder than it should. Feeling defeated all over again, Kurt heads back to the temp agency and finds his mommy to tell her he got fired. Unfortunately, it's still going to be a few more days before they can evaluate his trade aptitudes. Just as they're talking, a commotion breaks out at the front desk. It looks like a girl is arguing with the receptionist, trying to set up a recruitment ad. The receptionist, clearly irritated, and tells her that no one in their right mind would agree to the kind of awful working conditions she's offering. But the girl doesn't back down and says that the receptionist should at least try to find someone, and her persistence starts creating a disturbance. Concerned, Kershil goes over to see what the hell is going on. Her coworker quickly explains that this girl wants to hire a miner to dig through a mountain that's never been explored before, but she refuses to offer any upfront payment, and she only wants to pay if the excavation succeeds. Kershil doesn't even try to hide her disbelief because no sane person would take a deal like that, and suggests that the girl should instead seek investors to develop the mine. The girl, however, retorts that she simply cannot do that because if she doesn't pay off the taxes by the end of the week, they're going to seize the mine. Just then, Kurt steps up and says he's crazy enough to take on a job like that. But Kurt says that back in his village, he helped out with mine excavation plenty of times, so he's no stranger to this work. Kershil asks him if he's truly sure about accepting, pointing out that with the contract the girl's offering, there's a good chance he won't get paid at all. But before Kurt can even speak, the girl cuts in. She says she was hoping to hire a brawny dwarf, not a skinny boy who looks like he'd pass out lifting a shovel, so she feels kind of bad making him do it. Then again, hiring a dwarf would cost her at least 10 silver upfront, and she doesn't have that much, so she reluctantly decides to take Kurt after all. As the two of them head out, Kershil watches from her desk, a little worried. The job sounds like a mess, and she's not sure Kurt knows what he's getting into. Honestly, part of her thinks he'd probably make more working in a love hotel, and she even daydreams about spending a night with him, and even says that she'd pay good money for one night with him. While she's still caught in that hot thought, her coworker snaps her out of it because a transfer just came in, and it's the payment for the work Kurt did on the wall for the Margrave. She was expecting maybe 50 silver, but instead it's 200 gold. She stares at the check for a second, like it's some kind of mistake, and she's so stunned that she nearly trips over the pile of sandbags next to her chair. Her coworker quickly warns her to watch her step, explaining that these aren't ordinary sandbags. They're used to measure a person's mana, and they get heavier when touched by someone with a large mana reserve. Typically, they don't react with normal folks, so Kilchill can pick them up easily. But she recalls seeing Kurt struggle with them a few days ago, and she starts to wonder if he's really just some lost kid looking for work. At the same time, Kurt and Euryssia head into the forest towards her campsite. When they arrive, Kurt grows a bit uneasy upon noticing there's only one tent. Euryssia assures him that the tent is spacious enough for the two of them to share a night's sleep, but Kurt protests, saying he'd never be able to fall asleep if he's lying next to a gorgeous girl like her. After hearing Kurt call her gorgeous, Euryssia is momentarily upset, thinking that he's just messing with her. But when she looks at him, she can tell he means it. She goes quiet for a moment, then hands him a boiled potato for dinner. It's nothing fancy, just a simple boiled potato, but having someone cook for Kurt after so long means the world to him. He's also thankful that Euryssia is sitting with him to share the meal, since Zounoze and the others from the hero party always refuse to let Kurt eat in the same damn room with them. Later that night, Kurt and Euryssia retire to bed, but Kurt finds himself unable to sleep because Euryssia is dressed only in her underwear. He knows damn well he's not going to fall asleep with that going on, so he grabs his stuff and decides to sleep outside. And once he slips away, Euryssia, who had been feigning slumber, slowly opens her eyes. She had deliberately gone to bed in just her underwear to test whether Kurt would be a predator in his sleep, and now she's relieved to confirm he's a decent person. The next day, Euryssia steps out of the tent and finds Kurt sleeping by a tree. She feels a little bad for making him sleep out here, but then she notices that her jacket has been repaired. Kurt wakes up not long after, and Euryssia asks him with genuine curiosity if he was the one who fixed it, and he nods. She's surprised by how clean the stitching is, and she didn't expect him to know how to sew. Now she's wondering if he's really cut out for mining, but it's too late to back out, so they need to get to work. Kurt then asks if she's picked a place to start digging, but she says she was just going to pick a random spot and hope for the best. Kurt tells her that method's useless and says he knows a better way. He takes her to a rocky part of the mountain and starts looking around. Within minutes, he finds a chunk of stone filled with gemstones. Euryssia is shocked because she didn't expect results that fast, but Kurt keeps going, and in less than 10 minutes, he's found every gem in the area. She stares at the stones in disbelief because if she sold all of them, she could pay off her debt easily. But Kurt tells her she can't sell them. At first, she thinks it's because he found them, so they belong to him, but that's not it. He tells her the gems will be worth more if he turns them into magic crystals. She says that's a nice idea, but there are only 10 mages in the whole kingdom who can do that, but before she finishes talking, Kurt already has a finished crystal in his hand. Stunned into silence, Euryssia can barely process that not only did Kurt produce a magic crystal, but he did so in the blink of an eye, something even the most seasoned mages would struggle with for at least an hour. After Kurt finishes transforming all the raw gems into gleaming crystals, he finally agrees to let Euryssia take them to market. She then heads off to the city while he stays behind on the mountain, since he still has a few things he wants to take care of. And at the city's customs agency, she confidently declares that she wishes to sell her magic crystals, but given their extraordinary value, the agent immediately questions their origin. She knows there's no way he'd believe her if she said some random guy made them, so she pulls out her royal family emblem to shut him up. It's kind of a bluff because she hasn't worked for the royal family in a while, and they just never bothered taking the emblem back. But it works, and the agent lets her use the teleportation circle to head to the capital. Once she arrives, she visits the shop of an old friend named Mimiko. She tells her she's got some magic crystals to sell, so Mimiko checks them out, and at first glance, they don't seem like anything special. But after a closer look, she notices they're packed with 10 times the usual amount of mana, and that put their value at 10 gold each. Euryssia is speechless because Kurt gave her 50 of them. But Mimiko doesn't make a big deal about it, and she just counts out 500 gold and hands it over like it's nothing. But before Euryssia can leave, Mimiko has two conditions. First, she wants Euryssia to promise that any crystals like this will only be sold at her shop, because crystals this powerful can't just be allowed to circulate freely. Second, she wants to know who made them. Euryssia agrees to the first part without hesitation. But as for the name of the person who created them, she says she'll need to ask for his permission first. Mimiko, who also happens to be a court mage for the royal family, doesn't take that lightly. She tries to use her status to pressure Euryssia into talking, but Euryssia doesn't work for the royal family anymore, so she doesn't have to follow any of Mimiko's orders. Seeing she won't get anywhere by force, Mimiko tries a softer approach. She tells Euryssia that if the mage who made those crystals agrees to work for the royal family, they'll give him the title of Count and full access to the royal research lab. And with that, Euryssia leaves Mimiko's shop with the gold in hand, and the following morning, she returns to the mountain. But when she gets there, she stops in her tracks because Kurt built a whole damn house in just one day.